Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm the Avatar, and I'm going to save the world with my friends. Yip, and welcome to the Geekcentric podcast. My name is Nate, and this is our spoiler-free review for Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender. Special thanks, as always, to our friends at Netflix for letting us watch this series early for review. If you're joining us for the first time, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of movies, TV shows, video games, and all things geek-centric. Joining me for today's review, we've got my big furry friend who will help me reunite the four nations, and that's Justin the Sky Bison Lawrence. How's it going, bud?
I think that's the character I would relate to the most is the Sky Bison for sure. I definitely
Everyone
feel like
just hop on your back and
he
fly
was
us
so
around.
cool. Yeah, I'd be that guy for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, today we're talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live-action series, but it is based on an original Nickelodeon animated series of the same name. So, to kind of give some context for our listeners, I thought we'd maybe start off by just talking about our experience with the original series. Justin, for yourself, did you watch the original series?
I got through, I think, about maybe 6 episodes of the first season, and it didn't really jive with me. It's not that I wasn't a fan of it; it's just I never really got like hooked into it. I think it was in and around when it released on Netflix. I think that was during COVID, was it not?
Yeah, it had like sort of a
boom,
a balloon moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a lot of new fans.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I just never really got into it. I think at the time the animation was cool, and obviously I know about the series from fans like you. You know, it's on a lot of people's top 5, top 10 lists of all time great animated shows, or even just shows in general. So I'm not unfamiliar with the story of Aang and the Last Airbender and the Avatar elements. I understood. So I had some of a background in it, but I never watched it. So I think that's going to kind of work to my advantage, though, in maybe some positive lights in some ways. But at the end of the day, I think, it's, I never really got into it as much as I would have liked to of when I think I missed that age of when it was actually like probably attuned to me, because I feel like you probably grew up as a kid watching it.
I mean, I was still a little bit older. I think I was watching it when I was in high school. So it wouldn't be like when I was like a little kid. Do you think watching this show has inspired you to go back and maybe check it out again or try it out again?
No, it hasn't. I don't feel like I need to.
No.
I feel like again, in the context of what this is meant to be as an adaptation of the animated, I don't know if it's necessary. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm okay if this is the version of Avatar: The Last Bender that I am comfortable with, because I did enjoy it based on maybe not having had a pre-existing knowledge or appreciation for the animated show. But I don't know, I wasn't against it, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to make it seem like I was like, oh, I wasn't a fan of it. It's just I never really got into it. But this live action adaptation, though, I definitely jived with.
Okay, cool. I think I am one of those people you were talking about. Like, it's probably my favorite animated series of all time. I think all 3 seasons have a perfect Rotten Tomatoes score, which is pretty dope. And I think it was, for me, I think what made it so special was it was the first time that I had watched an animated show that really felt like I was watching a rich world in front of me with characters that had an immense amount of growth. And so for me, I think that's why I kind of have always been such a big fan of the characters and these stories, and even the subsequent series with The Legend of Korra. So yeah, I'm a big fan. But right before we dive into talking about this live action, Justin, I want to know, now that you've seen this one, what kind of bender would you be?
That's a good question. I never actually thought of it. I'd probably be Earth, someone boring. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Yeah.
I don't think it would be bored. Like,
No,
here's the
for
thing.
sure.
I mean, I think as a firebender, we probably burn ourselves. Like,
Sure.
we're, you know what I mean? We'd end up doing that. I burn myself on the stove, let alone fire that would just come out of my hand.
Right.
I think water bending is too wet. You know what I mean? I think you don't want to be soaked all the time.
Gets in your
And I
hair.
just, yeah, and I don't, and I don't see a benefit to being an airbender. So I'm actually with you. I think being an
Mhm.
earthbender, I don't think it would be boring. I think it would be convenient. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
I think, yes, I don't like sand because it's coarse and it's rough and it's irritating and it gets everywhere. But I think it is the most practical. Like, if we were in a survival situation, boom, instant shelter, done, easy, right? Or
Mhm.
like if we had to catch like fish, we could just like raise the ground where the fish are under the water and you got a bunch of fish. Like, I don't know. I think it's the most practical,
Makes
if I do
sense.
say so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
I guess so. Then I stick by my response. Earth for sure.
good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Good. We could be
convenience.
earthbenders
Yeah.
together, Canadian earthbenders. Um, but yeah, let's get to the description for this show. It's a bit of a doozy, so stay with me. Water, earth, fire, air. The four nations once lived in harmony with the Avatar, master of all four nations, keeping peace between them. But everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked and wiped out the air nomads. The first step taken by the firebenders towards conquering the world. With the current incarnation of the Avatar yet to emerge, the world has lost hope. But, like a light in the darkness, hope springs forth when Aang, a young air nomad and the last of his kind, reawakens to take his rightful place as the next Avatar, alongside his newfound friends, Sokka and Katara, siblings and members of the Southern Water Tribe. Aang embarks on a fantastical, action-packed quest to save the world and fight back against the fearsome onslaught of Fire Lord Ozai. But with a driven Crown Prince Zuko determined to capture them, it won't be an easy task. They need the help of many allies and colorful characters they meet along the way. The series is produced by showrunner Albert Kim and stars Gordon Cormier, Ian Ousley, Gary Wandanio, Dallas Liu, Ken Leung, Elizabeth Yu, Paul Sun-Hyung Lee, and Daniel Day Kim. Avatar: The Last Airbender is streaming exclusively on Netflix right now. So, listen to this. Maybe you've already watched a few episodes, or maybe you're catching this before, and then make sure to check it out. Justin, I thought we would get right into our thoughts on the series, and we're going to kind of just talk about what worked and what maybe didn't for us from the two different perspectives that we have of, being a fan of the original series and
Mhm.
someone who's not really watched it.
Mhm.
So yeah, let's kind of get into it. I wanted to start off with, I think, my favorite aspect, and I think it's going to be a lot of people's favorites, no matter whether they've seen the original show or not. And
Yeah.
that's the action in this show. I think the
Mhm.
bending specifically has to be the best part of the series. I think the way the elements are so fluidly implemented into the choreography is fantastic, and I think I think these action sequences live up to the dream that Avatar fans had since the announcement of the failed M. Night Shyamalan movie. I think this is so much better than that, and you can tell there's so much attention to detail when it comes to everything from the choreography to the sound design, especially with a lot of these moments with bending. And yeah, I definitely think it was a highlight of the show.
Yeah, for sure. The action is top notch. It's like much of what we see from this series. There was a serious investment in making that action look really, really good, and it paid off.
Hmm.
And I think again the wire work and mix of CGI and the choreography of the actual fighting was very impressive. The way they kind of mixed all of those different ways of showcasing some of that stuff, because there's some stuff obviously that you could probably do live action, but it would probably be a lot more wire work and insurance for stunts. And like there were instances where you do see like more of a CGI element that kind of is a figure rather than an actual person, and it's
Sure. Yeah.
for
Yeah. When it
it's
comes to
for
the visuals,
ease.
for sure.
Yeah, when it
Yeah.
comes to the sort of visuals in action moments.
Right.
But it's not like in the Matrix where basically it's a whole fight in
In a
Matrix
PlayStation 2
Reloaded.
cutscene or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Where it's like Agent Smith and thing. It's, you can tell that's all CGI. There's just
Yeah.
these little instances where they weave it in, and it's just it's just so carefully crafted into the moment that you barely notice it. So
Hmm.
they did a really good job of hiding it and doing it, what I would imagine was on a bit of a budget to make it look a certain way. But I don't know. Again, they spared no expense on this. Like,
Yeah.
it really does show.
Well, yeah, and I think the in terms of those visuals, like you're saying, like I think most of the visuals, and when I'm referring to visuals, I'm referring to CGI, but I'm also referring to sort of anything and everything I see on screen. And I think I do think like what was surprising to me, and we watched both sort of unfinished versions of some of these episodes and the finished versions of these episodes. They kind of
Yeah.
updated our screeners as we went back, and I think even with the unfinished to the finished version, I think Appa and Momo, for what we get of them, look
We're
really,
done.
really good.
Yeah. Yeah, Appa looked fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, I think all the creatures were actually handled really, really well. Like, any creature elements that were featured throughout the series, they were
Yes,
handled
the
with
ostrich
care.
horses looked pretty
Yep.
sick as well, for
Yep.
sure.
Yeah. There were some
For
scary
sure.
things too, that were
Oh yeah.
definitely got a little creepy crawly. And but yeah, I think that they again, they from a CGI standpoint, they definitely had the budget there for it too. And when you're talking about visuals too, and I know it's not necessarily uh might not necessarily be seen as visuals, but all the world building elements, like the things that
Yeah.
build out the world, like the set design, the costume design,
Hmm.
it's treated with a high tier of care that almost feels Harry Potter-esque, or even Lord of the Rings-esque to a certain degree, where there's just like this idea of really leaning into the world building qualities to define these places and define this world of Avatar. And I think that it helps to build out that world for someone who hadn't had any experience with it. It's very
For
confident.
sure. No,
Yeah.
for sure. And I think it's tricky. I think this is maybe where I start to have a bit of qualms with the show as well, in terms of some of those elements of world building. I think the locations. I think anything shot on set and on location in Vancouver. I think any of the forest moments, some of the
Hmm.
darker scenes look phenomenal in this show. And when you get sequences with firebending that's sort of lighting up different parts of the world around them, it really puts you into that world and brings it to life in ways that, again, as a huge fan of the original show, is so exciting. There are a lot of moments, however, for me, that I completely just saw the volume around these characters, and I understand that a city like Omashu, to kind of build out as a full scale location is impossible. It's so huge, and I completely understand the need for the volume. But I do think it was a little overutilized in quite a few sequences, especially indoors as well, which it was surprising to me. There was a lot of moments where you could just sort of see it in the background, or sort of see the character separated from that background.
Hmm.
That just kind of took me out of it a little bit, unfortunately. And I wanted to, again, sort of stay in those real world locations. And then I think the costuming that you were mentioning, you're absolutely right. It is perfect, but it's almost too perfect in the sense that it stays perfect. The costumes, they go on this, these characters go on this grand adventure. They're fighting with
They
the
never get
elements of
dirty. Yeah.
rocks and mud and
Yeah.
fire, but they never get dirty. And by the end of the series, I was looking at characters that I could see at a theme park and be amazed by, but at the same time, it just, again, that's another element where, especially when you're coming from an animated show, in an animated show, yeah, they're going to make the costumes look the same the entire time. In fact, I think they even do get moments where things rip and tear in the animated series. But here in the live action, there is such an opportunity to sort of, just go a little further with it.
Yeah.
And I just felt like that was a part that was a little bit lacking for me from the visuals specifically.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's valid to call it the point that their costumes stay pretty pristine, especially Aang's. Like it's almost like it's a superhero costume in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it does.
Yeah.
He's probably like his color of the orange and the red is just so vibrant, even against like palettes of blue. It just stands out. You know, when the
Yeah.
earth, it stands out. Like his color scheme stands out, which I don't know if that's by design in terms of why it might have stayed so pristine. So it is sort of a superhero costume.
Right, he's sort
Um,
of seen as like the light and the hope in these dark moments.
exactly. Yeah,
I
exactly.
completely get that, but I think at the same time he goes through some tough stuff, and so maybe that could be represented in his
Yeah.
visuals. I also wanted to touch upon, this isn't something you see, but just before we maybe get into the cast and talk about some of these performances, I do just want to quickly shout out the music. I think is great. I think Takeshi Furukawa adapted Jeremy Zuckerman's original score and brought it to the show pretty well. I think there's, we definitely have the original theme. We've got the end credit sequence theme, and there's some light elements of Iroh's theme used throughout the show as well. Which I think if you've ever been on TikTok before, you've probably heard Iroh's theme at some point to some really beautiful, landscape shot or something really sad. But I think there was nothing terribly new in Furukawa-san's score, but I at the same time that was the one moment where I was kind of just like, that's okay. From the music aspect, it's already so good as it is that leaving that untouched, I was totally fine with them just pulling it into this show.
Yeah, honestly, the score was perfect. It set the right vibe. It matched the tonal shifts of the story in a lot of ways. It was done with the same sort of sentiments again as some of these you know bigger than life stories that we know and love. Like I referenced, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's on that scale of wanting to hit that threshold of world building, and
Yeah.
the music is so signature. And like you said, if it was already really good as it was, then there's no point in trying to revamp it. It's about playing to those signatures and playing to those moments, so that will, if more than anything, music invokes great sense of memory, a memory and a nostalgic moment.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Mhm.
and I remember watching reactions to the trailers for this series, and that was like the first thing that I think 9 out of 10 videos I watched. The person on the other end of the screen was calling out. Let's get into this casting
Mhm.
of the show and these performances. I think the casting is fantastic. I think it should be
Yeah.
applauded for what they're doing with this show. I think there's performance elements that can be a little hit or miss, and I'll maybe get to that in a little bit. But I think the fact that we have a mostly Asian cast in a show that celebrates multiple Asian cultures is excellent. And I think for the most part, everyone fits their characters really, really well. I think
Mhm.
standouts for me, have to be Paul Sun Hyung Lee as Uncle Iroh, Daniel Day Kim as Fire Lord Ozai, and I think the biggest one for me was actually surprising for me, which was Ian Ousley as Sokka. There were some big changes made. There was kind of some controversy, Justin, before the show came out, with some interviews that kind of happened where they talked and discussed about some of the changes made to Sokka's character that I think are really seen as a point of frustration for a lot of fans potentially going into this show. But I will say he is so damn good as Sokka. He
Mhm.
is probably, in my opinion, the best adaptation out of all of these characters from animated to live action. And I think that more than made up for some of the changes in his character development for this live action show.
Yeah, I think Soka and Zuko
Mhm.
were my favorites.
Dallas Liu,
Yeah,
yes.
Dallas Liu is fantastic as Zuko, and I think rightfully so. Like you said, Ian Ahsoka is great, is fantastic. He's both like someone that you as a viewer, for me at least, I could relate to
Yeah.
at that at that age. And then
Because he's
there's
not a bender, too, right? That's another
right,
aspect, right?
absolutely, and he's so much more grounded.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot that he's carrying, and I think a lot of people can relate to that sentiment of feeling that responsibility, and or feeling a sense of responsibility, and not necessarily always believing in yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that is incredibly, and I think on the polar opposite, like I was saying, like with Dallas and Zuko, he's kind of in the same sort of boat. So their characters definitely do have very interesting arcs in the 8 episodes that are that will have you invested in them, if anything, along with variety. Because I agree with you. I think this casting is so good, and the way they kind of give every character some moments,
Hmm.
um it's handled well. It's handled really, really well. Like, I actually cared about all of these characters, right? Like, I cared.
Nice.
I was invested in all of them. I think, Gordon as Aang, um from what I remember of, and what have enjoyed, or have seen of the animated series, he is so, Aang is so, there's a naivete to him. There's a childlike wonder.
Yeah.
For me, when I watched it, it was reminiscent of like Goku in Dragon Ball, right?
Okay.
Like, just a
Yeah.
kid
Yeah. Yeah.
who doesn't really fully understand anything, right? And is sort of like displaced. And Gordon plays that in a sort of very childlike, wondrous way that feels very fitting for what I remember from what I saw of the animated series. So I think he really did do it. But there are times when it seems like he is acting, and I don't know
Yes.
if that's just because of an age thing. Like, I know that a lot of people say that about Daniel Radcliffe when he was Harry Potter in the
Right.
first movie, right? Like,
Yep.
he was just a kid plucked and put into Harry Potter, and as he obviously developed and he got better, and I think that might be it, is as this show ages up, will he get better with that, right? Will
I
there be
fully
less
agree
of
with you.
that?
And I
Yeah.
hope that we do get more seasons of this show to see more character development within these characters, and to see more development in terms of a performance standpoint from someone like Gordon Cormier. I think
Mhm.
he gets that childlike innocence excellent because I mean,
Yeah.
he's a kid. But I think at the same time, there's something I can say about his performance in this that I couldn't say about Daniel Radcliffe's performance in Harry Potter 1, which is there are at least two moments with Gordon Cormier acting between him and another character that got to me emotionally and like
Yeah.
got me teary eyed, and
Yeah.
that is super impressive for a young actor, for him. And so yeah, I think that
He did a
is
great job.
I
He
think
was
he did a
good.
great job. I think the moments where he does feel like he's acting a little bit more, I will talk about the writing maybe a little bit later, because I
Sure.
think there are some aspects that could have changed that maybe would have sort of
Yeah.
elevated even what he did. I think Paul Sun Hyung Lee is perfect as Iroh. He's always been perfect as Iroh. He fits the character so well, and again, he's got at least two moments where, but especially with him and his relationship with Zuko,
Mhm.
really, really got to me.
Got to me, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Paul Sung Lee is fully embracing this character. He is Uncle Iroh to a T. I even watched some like best moments of Uncle Iroh as I was going through these episodes, just to kind of get a sense of the animated, and they casted him so well.
Yeah.
And I think he really does lean into this role and become that character. Um, Gowan Dio as Katara she's fantastic. Like, I think that even again, like, the attention to moving these characters through, and
Hmm.
again, we'll talk about writing when we get there, but I at least I appreciated how they kind of gave each character a journey through these seasons.
Yeah.
I enjoyed her journey as well. It gets a little heavy handed towards the end, but uh, the lead up is fantastic. And she did such a great job in that. And yeah, she was another one of the trio are such standouts that I feel like they're this will have a success. Like, the three of
Yeah.
them, they really did work really, really well.
They're locked in for sure.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think the only other folks I wanted to quickly mention, Elizabeth Yu as Azula. I think
She was
Daniel Day
great.
Kim. Yeah, both of them were excellent, and both of them fit the characters really, really well. I do, one thing I will say is
You wanted
we
more of them,
actually.
right?
I wanted more of them. We got more of them than we actually do in the original series. In the original series, especially with Ozai, he is kind of like, Mark Hamill does the voice of Ozai, right? And he's kind of just in the background. He's a big shadowy sort of figure.
Right.
And Azula is kind of doing what they're doing in the show, which is sort of just keeping her near him and whispering in his ear and what have you. But I will say, like, there were moments where we would cut to Azula and we'd get maybe 1 or 2 minutes of her in each episode. And I just felt like, this is another area where I felt like they could have maybe pushed more, maybe adapted a little bit more away from the original. Because again, the extra moments that we get, especially with Ozai, are so rewarding to watch as an original fan. I think they
Mhm.
could have done that with Azula, and I think Elizabeth you know, she kicked the crap out of that role. I think she could have maybe done a little bit more, or we could have seen a little bit more.
Yeah, but, like, I think, again, it goes without saying, there's intention here for a season 2, and it very much shows, and it shows in a lot of these performances where they feel like they're like, Elizabeth Yu does do such a great job in the role, but I think a lot of it has to do with where we're gonna see her next, right?
Okay,
Because do you know what I mean? Like, I think
they're
that's
building that anticipation.
exactly, and she's
Yeah,
building that anticipation and really, giving it her all. But yeah, this cast, like, is top to bottom fantastic for
yeah.
this series. And not just for the cultural touch points. That goes without saying, obviously.
Hmm.
But it's literally who they've selected to play each of these characters and the way that they've been adapted for this live action. It feels like it's got a bit of more maturity than the animated series to a certain degree.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, early reviews for this that have been out, early reactions to this that have been out, we've been kind of looking at a couple of them, and some people are calling the performances stiff. And I do think that's unfair. I think it actually does have more to do with the writing in the show. And I think also an element of the series, for me at least, I didn't find that it balanced tone well enough. I think part of adapting a show means you take some elements and you evolve or change others. And I think when it comes to the writing of the dialogue, especially, I think it could have benefited from a bigger sort of divergence from the original. There's something with the original animated series that just doesn't translate well to live action. And I think if I was to nail it down, I think it's the rapid at times shift in tone from moment to moment. You'll notice it in, I think, some of the humor, and you'll kind of just sort of see it happen throughout the series, or at least I did. And I think it's made even more difficult by condensing, going from 20 episodes in book one to just 8. And that's where I think we can kind of get into the story and the narrative.
Mhm.
For me, it's really tough, right? Because again, I'm going into this show, and I'm obviously, whenever we go into this stuff, I don't want it to fail. I don't want this stuff to
Mhm.
not live up to expectations. I want it to be amazing and fantastic, and especially with things that I'm coming in already in love with. I think there are so many wonderful things to bring over from the original series, and when you're trying to please fans new and old of the original series, I completely understand wanting to bring in as many of those elements as possible. The problem is you've got 8 episodes. Granted, most of them are double, even triple the length of those original episodes, but it's still too much. I think honestly, watching this, I was left thinking that I would have rather them left certain plot points and even additional wonderful characters completely out, and maybe just sort of focus in a little bit more on sort of a fewer amount of different characters and elements from the original series, and then they could have brought those other characters back in a maybe more focused way in a future season. I don't think we needed to adapt the entirety of book one into 8 hour long episodes. I think they could have gotten away, because again, the budget on this, and like you said, they're making it with that intentionality of, we're gonna have more, we're gonna see more. This cast is so excellent. People, I think, are going to root for this series, and I really hope they do, because I do want more. But I think that they could have taken their time a little bit more. They have to move so quickly that a lot of the plot lines that coming in as a fan of the original that we love are kind of mashed together, and those and elements of those stories are sort of brushed through in a matter of minutes. And I think it's just one of those things where, again, like, I would prefer more quality than quantity when it comes to what was taken from the original series. There are some incredible moments, I think maybe two moments, where they actually expand on what the original series did. And in those moments where we get to sort of see more or see moments that didn't happen in the original series, as a fan coming in, I completely appreciated that so much more. And they had so many opportunities to do that. I think I would have preferred personally to have more of those moments than having every single little, Leonardo DiCaprio meme pointing at the screen moment of there's the thing that I know from the original. I think they could have gotten away with a more focused approach. And for me, I think that's really where the series kind of lost me. And the pacing is sort of just all over the place. But
Mhm.
Justin, I want to know kind of what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I again, I think as I was mentioning at the top, me not having any experience or knowledge with anything that's happened in the original series or comics or whatever,
Yeah.
I think that worked to my benefit because none of that really phased me. I didn't get any of that. Right. I
Hmm.
think the only thing I did get is that there was a mixture of pacing,
Yeah.
right, and from a tonality standpoint, you're right. Like I remember the animated series being very goofy and very silly, and
Yep.
they definitely tried to bring that charm and that over in the live action. It didn't always work, especially given the fact that these are 8 1-hour episodes of a show, and there is a lot that does happen in each of them.
Hmm.
But I still think that what I appreciated is that they focused on the right characters to help build out what could be a season 2.
Hmm.
I think even though the bigger story of the overall season seems to be very rushed, the character stuff feels very focused, and they kind of have placed things in a way to help set up for hopefully a second season if that's in mind, right? Or if
Hmm.
that's possible to if it gets greenlit.
I hope it
Um,
does.
yeah, I do. I really do hope it does. So I don't know. I think for me at least the story worked. I think again I think it depends on how you want to how you approach it. If I think this is something that's very close to a lot of people,
Yeah.
and a lot of people care about this story, and I think just going in knowing that it's an adaptation. It's it's not easy to try to scale down 20 episodes. And I get what you're saying. You didn't have to do 20 into 8. They could have broken it up, but I think for the trajectory of what they want to know, they want to say, this is how much we can accomplish in this first season to set up for a season 2 if we get it. And that probably looks a lot more appetizing as to Netflix, because then it's it's commitment, but they can at least commit to 3 seasons, right?
For
And know
sure.
that, right, that it's adapting those 3 seasons of the animated into
Yeah.
live action, and they have that, right?
I
So
just think I think there's an element of playing it safe personally that I would have been so much more okay with fans being upset that it was too different from the original even. You know what I mean? Like I think an
so you think
element
they
of
played too much into the fandom
yeah,
of the
there's just a
series
little bit
rather
too
than
much. Yeah, because again, there's elements that are put in certain episodes that are stuffed together that honestly, if you watch the original series, you would kind of just go like, but why? Why do we have to give us get sort of 25% of all of these things when we could have maybe had 75 to 100 of a few of them? And I think that to me was sort of the moments that kept sort of losing me because again, I'm coming in and I don't want it to actually be exactly shot for shot like the original. I really don't. I want it to be kind of again. I think it's fair to say. I think in the trailers they've already shown the one of the early sequences that we get to witness that we never got from the original show, and there's two of them, and I think it would have been great to have gotten a lot more of that
Mhm.
throughout the series because I think it would have helped to inform moments for original fans. And again, like you're saying, as a new fan, you wouldn't have been really any wiser. So I don't think it would have dampened experiences for folks coming in fresh.
Sure. I think though that they did a really great job though of at least getting me invested in this and getting me up to speed, like on the elements and the different players that are on the board, right? Like I think that it did its job for a season 1. And I don't know, like we just watched and finished Percy Jackson, and
Hmm.
this is a kid's book that's been adapted, and that content felt very kiddish. And it still worked, but for me at least, I think I'm outside of the age bracket of where it would. But hopefully with future seasons and stuff, and there's already season 2 planning, and it'll start slowly aging up, and maybe I'll it'll get to the point where it was like with Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Um, Going into this, going into the Avatar: The Last Airbender, I already anticipated this was going to be a very kid friendly sort of show,
Hmm.
even if it is a live action adaptation, and that's what I got. I feel like that's sort
Yeah.
of what I got from that, and it at times it does feel very Disney esque as a series, across the world. Like there was just this quality to it that felt like it all worked really, really well to kind of, at least for me, as someone to get me interested in.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would hope personally that that you actually would maybe consider trying to go back to check out the original series, just so you can kind of get a little more context for maybe how I'm feeling feeling about the show. But I also think I completely agree with you on the element of, yeah, please let's get a second season. I want to see Toph in live action. I really do. Who's a character that maybe you don't know yet. But I also just really, really, really want this show to have another chance, another go at trying to kind of really, really kind of capture what made the original so special.
Right, exactly. And I don't think that, again, it's Netflix. That's why we're kind of like teetering on, is it going to get greenlit or not? Because
Right.
we sort of enjoyed, Cowboy Bebop, and they had no problem, erasing that, not
Immediately.
and
Yeah.
immediately just
But then we
canceling
see
it. But
something like One Piece, and it is
but that was
absolutely
definitely a
coming back.
surprise and delight, and it was like,
Yeah.
okay, it's coming back. So I do think that with the success of that, there's elements that from there even that kind of carry over into, and I don't mean just the anime, I just mean the sort of the audience for
Hmm.
sure, but also just potentially even like the look and feel, like some of the vibe of how they've live actioned the anime-esque, right? Because Avatar is not anime, it's more like fanime, right? Like it's
It's
produced
like
by
I think they
Nickelodeon.
refer to it as a merime or something,
Yeah,
like
Marime,
American
or yeah,
anime style. Yeah.
anime. So, and I think that's another reason why I never really got off with the animated series, is just because I thought it was supposed to be an anime series, but it wasn't, and it
Okay.
just felt very like, wanting to try to be a anime
Sure.
series, and you know what I mean. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, let's get to our overall thoughts and final score for this series, which we're going to be rating on a scale of 1 to 5 cabbages. My
1 to 5.
cabbages.
So like, as we were just kind of like discussing, for me, this live action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender, it's a success. It's masterful in its world building, and it has really great performances from top to bottom. It's all very beautifully done, and I think it kind of, in some ways, is taking again a lot of that iconography and imagery from the animated series, and bringing it to life in live action. And that is a huge part of why the series did get greenlit, is so that people could see this in a whole new style and medium, right? The pacing, it's ambitious, does keep you hooked. But the finale, I found, I think it really does rush to an end. I think there's just too much ground to cover in the finale, and I think the lead up was far better, right? Like leading up into the finale was really good. I think it
Okay.
was more focused. I do think that there's a strong foundation that's been laid here, and the potential for a second season feels very promising, given the way things have kind of unfolded in this season one. Um, but I do think that if you are a fan of the series, I'm not saying erase your mind from what you know. I just think that you going into it and understanding it to just be entirely separate from what you have seen, I think that's helpful in a way of just understanding it's an adaptation. It's something new. Um, I feel like this is a 4 out of 5,
Okay.
because it really does set the stage for more adventures ahead, and it does it with characters that I actually genuinely cared about, and I was invested in. So yeah, 4 out of 5 cabbages.
Okay. You're choking up. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I need to drink my water here, so I'm gonna do that.
Got to water bend it into your mouth. I think this show gets a lot right, and it gets a lot wrong at the same time. I think again the casting is excellent. The action and the bending is captured so well, and the fight choreography is so good. The music is what it needs to be, and the visuals of sort of large scale environments as well as Appa and Momo are great, and
Yeah,
moments that are shot on location are fantastic. I do think that the use of the volume sort of, for me, took me out of this beautiful and diverse world a lot of the times, especially in interiors. I think the dialogue and the rapid shifts in tone just don't translate well enough from the animated series over. And I think it's something that could have been adapted much better. I think that they could have changed and evolved that in a way that might have worked a little better for live action and for, a live version of these characters. I think the pacing is where it falls the most for me. I think ideas from the original show mashed together in sort of a quantity over quality mentality for me. And for, I think, a lot of fans of the original and maybe some newcomers, it could be a little frustrating. I love the original series. I want to love this adaptation. I definitely enjoyed my time with it, but I there were so many moments where I was sort of taken out at the same time. It's leagues beyond what M. Night Shyamalan did back in 2010. So if that's what you're worried about, you can you can rest easy. It's nowhere near that, thank goodness. But watching it, you can, if you are a fan of the original series and of its creators, Brian Konietzko and Michael Dante DiMartino, you can sort of see why they might have left halfway through this series and sort of 2 years after, starting on it. But that said, I really hope it gets the support and love that at least this cast deserves. And I do hope we get a second season, because I think I'd love to give them another go at this. So I'm not stoked to do it, but I am going to give Avatar, The Last Airbender, a 3.5 out of 5 cabbages. But that is it for this review of Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts, if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts on this series or any of the shows or movies we cover, well, let me just blow my bison whistle so that Justin can let you know how you can reach us.
Well, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at GeekcentricYT, or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
Keep in mind, we also have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies, TV shows, and games, including our recent spoiler-free reviews for Star Wars: The Bad Batch Season 3 and Marvel Studios' Echo, as well as a bunch of other reviews from last year that you can catch up on. And we also have some great interviews out right now, like our most recent interview with Paul Sun-Hyung Lee and Daniel Dae Kim from this very show. I was stoked to chat with these absolute legends about what this show means to them, and we talked about what it means to bring these characters to live action, and we also talked about thirst tweets. So that's definitely a good moment to check out. We also have some interviews with some folks behind Star Wars: The Bad Batch recently out as well. We spoke with Michelle Ang Omega herself, and Justin had the chance to chat with executive producer and supervising director Brad Rao and executive producer and head writer Jennifer Corbett about the last season of that show. We also asked Michelle what her clone nickname would be. So check out those interviews. They're a lot of fun. You can check those out over at youtube.com/geekcentric or here on your podcast service of choice. So again, subscribe, leave a like, leave a review, share these podcasts and these videos with your friends and family. It does help us a ton. We've got some really great stuff coming in the month of March and all throughout 2024. So yeah, just make sure you stick with us so you can, we can cover all things for you, all things geek-centric. Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this spoiler-free review. And as we say, love ya.
Peace.